Hey YouTube, RicoKnows here. Going to talk to you guys about the next draft class. Remember, I'm doing every single draft pick from the 2024 NFL Draft. I'm reviewing every single pick by every team. I'm going alphabetical by city. If you want to see all the other teams, all you have to do is click on the little playlist, whether you're on YouTube or TikTok. But if you're on YouTube watching this, you can click on playlist on my homepage of my profile and find 2024 NFL Draft Review. And I believe review and assessments. I think that's what the whole title is. But nonetheless, we're on the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Cincinnati Bengals going into this draft, they got the first pick, 18th overall. And you go and get Amarius Mims. Now, before the draft, I don't do mock drafts. But when I looked at Amarius Mims, I thought he was going to drop to the Cowboys. I thought he was going to drop in the 20s. This is a guy with a lot of potential, but nothing really been figured out. Now, I've been watching Amarius Mims play since Bleckley County. I've been watching him since high school. Shout out to GPB Sports. He's always on TV every week. They talked about him every single time. Big Mims and all this shit. Great guy. Gets to Georgia. I was really surprised to see him. I think he jumped in the portal, and then Florida State was trying to pay him, and he snitched, and then he went back up to Georgia. Couldn't start over Broderick Jones. And that's the point, is some guys are more polished and NFL ready, and then there's Amarius Mims. He's got a lot of potential. He's 6'7", 340 pounds. You want to see him play well, but he has less than 800 snaps. That's not a lot of snaps for an NFL draft pick. What I'm saying is there are draft picks in the NFL, there are offensive linemen that have been 3- and 4-year starters. That's just the social norm. You find a guy who was better than everybody else around him, and he's been starting from the jump. You'll see that with a lot of draft picks. But when you look at Amarius Mims, it's nah, he's not quite there. He's still really young, a lot of potential, and they don't need him right away. But taking a first rounder at 18, really high upside, the potential's there. It's just, did you have the luxury at this moment? Do you have any other needs on your team? I'm just curious. Feels like a good pick. I'm cool with it. Second pick, Chris Jenkins, one of the strongest players pound for pound in this draft. Love everything about Chris Jenkins. This is a son of an NFL player. He knows what it takes. I think he's been built for this moment. If you go and watch film, I watch a lot of film, right? Watch every single one of these prospects. When I went and watched films on Chris Jenkins, I see a heavy, strong defensive tackle that can take on double teams, can multi-gap things. He helps your linebackers maneuver, get around, and make the plays. I like everything he does. I think he's a 2-3 contract guy. He's going to get a second contract. A lot of times when I judge draft picks, it's based upon whether or not I think they're going to be on your team for a second contract. And for me, Chris Jenkins is that guy. He looks really good. Then you have Jermaine Burton. Sometimes people lose sight of how good Jermaine Burton is. He was one of the nation's leaders in catches, in yards per reception. He's just explosive. But when you watch Jermaine Burton, he does nothing all that great, and he's not very likable. The fan bases don't like him. He started his career at Georgia, and then he moved over to Alabama. But let me tell you what I know when I watch film of Jermaine Burton. I know he's the best receiver on whatever team he's on. And when you start looking at teams that have other receivers like Isaiah Bond or Ladd McConkey, he's still better than those guys. When they show up to practice and they show up on Saturdays, Jermaine Burton is the most productive wide receiver on any team he's ever been on. So getting him in the third round feels like a really good bargain because this is a high-level player playing at the highest level against the toughest competition, and he still performs. Now, yes, you know what else he performs? Acts of extreme concern. Remember, he assaulted a girl who was running onto the field, and nobody really said anything about it. Saban should have suspended his ass forever, and he didn't. So, for me, I have character concerns, decision-making concerns, but he's still a very good talent, and he's always been a good talent. So, seeing Burton in the third round kind of makes sense, but I guess they just don't care. Bengals have never really been an organization who's been we're not drafting that guy. He's slightly problematic. That guy might be a criminal. They don't care. They've never had that concern whatsoever. You go to Cincinnati, you fit right in, bro. I'm just saying, you fit right in. McKinley Jackson, later in the third round, out of A&M. A&M changed their defense this year. I think it really exposed McKinley Jackson. It showed me he's not exceptional. He's just okay. There's not too many things great about him, but he's huge. Okay, this is a big man. And if you look at it, they tried to address defensive tackle in this draft like crazy. They actually drafted 3 defensive linemen during this draft, if you count Cedric Johnson down there. And Cedric is pretty big as well. But it was a lot of size up front. Get him in the rotation. He can give you some downs, maybe a couple of series here and there. But I don't see him being an everyday starter. I just don't think he's built for it like that. He's not that guy. Eric All. I think before the draft, the Bengals knew they were going to draft a tight end. So they evaluated all the tight ends, all of them. And this is because, I say that because they got Tanner 2 rounds later. And Tanner, coming out of Arizona, is a pass-catching tight end, a stud of a pass catcher. He's explosive. He does all those things downfield that you want. And Eric All is more traditionally all around pretty decent. Like, he can catch, he can block, he can do everything really well. But I'm pretty sure Eric All graded out a little higher as a complete player, and so you take him in the 4th round. But when you get back to the 6th round and you're going to draft players, you evaluated so many tight ends, you actually know how good some of them are. And you go, oh my goodness, there's still a 4th round grade here available in the 6th. And that's why they took a second tight end. Anytime you see a team double dip at tight end in the same draft, that tells you they believe that second tight end is the best available player in the draft. Like, period. That's the best available player in the draft. It has to be, or else they wouldn't draft another tight end. Right? The Packers did this last year when they took Tucker Kraft. Like, they already had a tight end in Musgrave, and then they saw they were picking again in the 4th round. They look around, they go, man, this guy Tucker Kraft's still on the board. We evaluated all the tight ends. This guy was a 2nd round grade. He's still here. We're taking him. Similar circumstance here for the Bengals. So I like those picks. Don't mean to skip over Josh Newton. For me, if you saw my pre-draft rankings, and I had pre-draft rankings for the live stream for everybody, I'm going to pull it up here. You guys can see this. Josh Newton was my number 5 corner. My number 5 corner, right behind Kool-Aid McKinstry, ahead of Cooper DeJean. If you watch TCU football 2 years ago, when they went on that national title run, Josh Newton was pretty much the best player on their defense. Pretty much. And they had a Jim Thorpe Award winner. They had another guy. Like, they had a ton of NFL talent on that defense. One guy sticks out to me, Josh Newton. I think he's a mega baller. I think he's just the stud of a player. Yes, he's small. Yep. I don't know how tall he is. I bet I can click on this and find out. 5'11", 190. Okay. I don't think that's small. But they say his size isn't big enough to play in the NFL, so he starts dropping. You get him in the 5th round. I think Josh Newton is a nickel back in the NFL, and shout out to Nickelback. They make amazing music, but Josh Newton's going to make amazing music on the field. I hope he makes the team, gets in the rotation, and becomes an NFL regular. I'd love to see 2 contracts out of Josh Newton. That guy's a baller. Okay, going back to the 6th round, the 2nd pick in the 6th round, they take Cedric Johnson out of Ole Miss. I respect Cedric Johnson's ability to maintain his starting position. When I look at Ole Miss, they brought in so many transfers, over 30 last year. Ton of studs. Guess who didn't lose his spot? Cedric Johnson. He's been starting there for 3 years. He's a known commodity. He's good to go. So for me, that's a big deal. I really like it. Unfortunately, I don't think his game translates to the NFL. He's 6'3", 260, about a step too slow to cover anything. Got to come off the field on passing downs. Isn't a true pass rusher, if you will. Doesn't get a ton of sacks or anything. I think he needs to work on a lot of different things. So you got him late. You got a guy from the SEC padding those stats, and it doesn't really work for me. I don't think he makes the team or he has any type of impact. Same thing with Anthony there at safety from Ole Miss. Not an impactful player. Don't think he makes the final 53. I think it was a waste of a draft pick personally. And then you get Matt Lee at the end of the year, or at the end of the draft. Matt Lee is a 4-year starter. Matt Lee, like I told you, offensive lineman, been starting for years upon years. This guy was the starting center at UCF for his whole career. Then he spent his final year with Miami. So now everybody says, oh, we got a Miami center. Well, he's really a UCF guy. But I think he's great. I don't ever watch him give up sacks. I don't watch him get caved in. I watch him maintain, communicate, lead the offensive line. Matt Lee does everything right. It's not his problem at all. So I like Matt Lee. I think he should make the team and contribute to this team moving forward. I think they'll be very surprised getting a player like that in the 7th round. I hope. I don't know if he's got injury problems or why he fell so late, but for me, Matt Lee's the guy. If you go back and look at my offensive line chart, just so you guys know, I'm not making this up. There he is, Matt Lee, my 4th favorite guy on the offensive line. True story. Now, I was intentionally picking guys that most people don't talk about, but yeah, my 4th favorite center, or my 4th favorite player, was Matt Lee on the offensive line. How about that? How about that for a coincidence? Holy smokes, I didn't even realize that. I should have talked about that in the TikTok video. Nonetheless, this is my breakdown of the Bengals picks. I like some of them a lot, and then some of them feel like throwaways. All in all, that's typically how it happens with an NFL team. They draft guys that'll make their team better, and then they take a swing on some other guys. I assess them as misses. I assess them as doing it wrong. We'll see who's right? 2-3 years from now, you can come back and watch all my videos and realize, oh my God, Rico was hitting at above 90% in his evaluation. That's what makes me great. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.